Born in a refugee camp in Khartoum, raised in a church compound, migrating to America, not knowing the English language, yet working hard and excelling academically to become an officer in the US Army, Bol Maywal has lived a remarkable life filled with determination and commitment. Join us as we discuss his new book titled A Mother's Promise here on Beyond the Headlines. Happy the son whose faith in his mother remains unchanged, and who through all his wanderings has kept some filial token to repay her brave and tender love. A quote published in the book A Mother's Promise, a profound book written by our guest, Bol Maywal.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're most welcome. Thank you for being here. In the book, you wrote a lot about your mother and the challenges she endured to raise you and your siblings. Why focus primarily on your mother's life as opposed to writing about yourself as the main character?
Well, my mother plays a true role in my life and my siblings. She's a mother who never left us, and a father who has always been there for us. So this book is a dedication to her, and is a special tribute to all the sacrifices she makes for us to be successful, and is just a way of saying thank you for all the things you've done.
So you begin your mother's story with the often realistic cultural expressions and expectation among our tribes within the country, whereby when a young girl reaches puberty, it is time for her to get married. As a young girl, your mother wanted to focus on education, yet she had suitors coming to your grandfather's house requesting your mother's hand in marriage. Talk about that experience that your mother endured.
Well, this experience is something that most young South Sudanese girls go through. Child marriage or forced marriage is an issue in South Sudan. It needs a special attention for us to put an end to it. Because such practices forces young girls to be mothers at such a young age, when they could be doing other things like going to school and getting the education. But unfortunately, it's a challenge that our people continue. It's a challenge that the young woman is still facing in South Sudan until today. It's up to our generation, Eunice, to put an end to this practice, because if you look in South Sudanese society today, most women can read and write, and this is a challenge because you're going to end up in a society where half people are not productive members of society. And I start off my book with this reality because it's an issue that needs to be addressed. We need to talk about it, especially us men. We need to talk about it because this is not just a woman issue. This is also a man issue, because the fact that my mom did not go to school affects me personally as a male, and it affects my brothers. And when someone like my mom comes to a country where education is important, she struggles. And this is something that I observed as a boy, and I think that it's a problem that needs to be talked about, and we together can work on a solution to this problem.
That is very important. It's quite remarkable that you're able to note and also connect the fact that if a mother is illiterate, it impacts the children as well, and it's had an impact on your life.
That is true, and that is correct. You said it very well. The connection is there, and sometimes we wonder why our mothers cannot understand certain things that we take for granted, but because they're not educated, and they didn't have the opportunity when they were young. It affects them later in the future. For example, if a woman is not educated, she cannot educate the children, and thus becomes a generational thing. So it's important that men are brought into this fight to put this practice to an end once and for all.
Mhm. So are you against early child marriage?
Absolutely. No question about that.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Now, in September 1983, when Awil was attacked by the Sudan government, your mother had to flee her village, leaving your grandmother behind. In the book you wrote, which I found this quite remarkable, is, and I quote, "At her mother's encouragement, my mother gathered up her surviving children, my sister Akech and brother Alajabo, and fled into the bush with others from her village. She left behind 3 daughters who had died young of natural causes and were buried in the village." Was that an emotional part for you to write, an emotional aspect for also your mother to relate to you, such a story?
Absolutely. It was very emotional scene to capture and difficult to imagine. My mother was brave enough to speak about this circumstances that happened to her when she was still a young woman. Um, when I interviewed her before I wrote that chapter, she was kind enough and brave enough to speak about it, and I just sat there and imagined, difficulties that she had to go through and my grandmother had to go through. But again, the experience of seeing your village destroyed, your husband killed, family forced to flee and split is horrifying, to say the least. Uh, the scene that you talked about, that you were able to see and notice, was the last conversation my mother and my grandmother had, and that scene profoundly changed my mother's destiny, my mother's course of life, and it determined her destiny, and it also shaped us as her children. This is the reason the book is titled A Mother's Promise: Civil War Survivor and Her Pursuit of the American Dream. First, we didn't even know that we were going to go far to this country we are currently in as a refugee and now as a citizen. We just knew that there was a promise that my mother made to her mother, my grandmother, that she would take us to safety and she would do all she could to fulfill that promise. And that promise was fulfilled 35 years later here in the United States.
Mhm. Yes, and just the unfortunate things that our mothers have lost children, but yet they never forget about the children that they lost. And
Mhm.
the fact that your mother remembered her 3 daughters that she left behind,
Right.
says a
Mhm.
lot about not only her promise to you, but also her promise to her children that are no longer living.
That is correct.
So I found that part very heart-wrenching and difficult to read, to be frank with you.
It's very difficult, and I had the opportunity to go to South Sudan in 2016, and I went to that site where my sisters were buried, and I was trying to imagine the situation, putting myself in my mom's shoes and my grandmother's shoes, and it was challenging. My mother's first house, where she lived as a young woman, was not too far from where the kids were buried. So I captured that moment. I recorded it, and I brought those video back to my siblings so they can see what I saw. And this really says a lot about says a lot about my mom as a woman, the power that she has, and her vision.
Yes. Now, once your mother fled from Awil to Sudan and ended up at a displacement camp close to Khartoum, you wrote about how you fell gravely ill and how your biological father wished death upon you because of the agony you were enduring. Yet
Right.
your mother did not give up on you. How was your mother able to ensure your survival in an environment that you described in your book as death among infants was an everyday occurrence?
Well, that was a miracle. I survived in that environment because of faith. There was no medicine to take or doctors to see in that displaced camp. My mother's faith was tested, and the Almighty God answered. Everyone in that refugee in displaced camp thought, everyone, to include my close family members, they thought I was the next. They thought I was going to be the next child who's heading to grave, but my mother refused. And she didn't refuse physically. This was a spiritual refusal to let me go. And she basically asked the Almighty God that you are the one that gives and you are the one that takes. If you want to take this child, then take him. If you want to keep him for me. And that right there really changed everything. Her faith gave me a rare opportunity to stay alive. This is the reason I speak so highly about my mother and why I give her all the credit that she rightfully deserves.
Absolutely. It's so important. She's such a brave woman indeed. In 1997, your family decided to leave the refugee camp in Khartoum and headed to Egypt due to the civil war that was just continuously occurring within Sudan. When you arrived in Egypt, their environment was neither healthy nor was it welcoming. As you have seen with the stories that are now circulating through social media of Southern Sudanese being mistreated by Egyptians, which is an indication of the unwelcoming environment. At a point, you had to live in a church compound. Please describe that experience.
Yes, we lived in the church compound as homeless for several months. My mother had nowhere to go with young children at her care. This was this was extremely difficult moment for us as a family. My stepfather was ill; he was hospitalized, and my mom was left alone with us. So she stayed in the church compound, and she did her best. The experience of living there was extremely difficult because it came with daily restrictions. For example, we had to do things we had to do things according to the church restrictions. For example, the church gate had to be closed at a certain time, and if you were outside that gate, then you slept outside on the street. We had to spend a night sometime without a light in that church compound. Additionally, there were 2 restrooms available in that church compound, and my family had to wait until everybody was out of the church compound to take care of hygiene. During the school days, during the during the weekdays, my brothers and I had to wake up early in the morning to take care of hygiene and pack our stuff and put them away and getting ready for school. We were the first kids in this formation, and it was challenging because we were young at the time. And but my mom did the best she could. Even though we were homeless, she made sure that we had clean clothes and we had food to eat. One of the challenges is where my mom had to go to another house, a friend house, which is about miles away, to go prepare food and bring it back to us in the church so we can have something to eat. So those challenges were extremely difficult, but we managed to stay there long enough until things got better. My mom works long hours. She had 2 jobs. She would leave us in the church compound and she would go to her first job, and then she would go to another job. Once she's finished with her first, she would go to her second job. And by the time she arrived, she would be extremely exhausted, and this is something she did every day. Despite the helping hand the church extended to us to make life tolerable in the church compound, it was still difficult. It was still difficult to live there.
Yes, indeed. And I don't want to delve too deep into it because I want people to get a copy of your book, A Mother's Promise, because there you go deeper into the details of the hardships that you and your family endured in Egypt, and even in the refugee camp in Sudan. So this is a very worthy book to read. Now, let's go ahead and jump forward a little bit when you arrived in the US back in March of 2001. You arrived here with your stepmother, your stepfather, your mother, and siblings. Apart from adapting to the new culture and language, enrolling in the American school, your stepfather fell gravely ill. This must have been a very difficult time period for you and your family.
It was. My stepfather fell ill. At the time, the family was in transition to a new life in America. He was declared disabled by a doctor a few months after we arrived. In other words, he could not work to provide for the family or assist my mom with raising us. This circumstances forced my mother to shoulder all the difficulties, all the challenges in a new country on her own.
Mhm.
She had to work 12 hours shift to put food on the table and to pay for the bills. Because at that time we were here for 3 months, and the way refugee service work, social service work, is once you arrive to U.S. After 3 months, they don't assist you anymore with with bills and anything like that. Basically, you're left on your own. And my mother did not speak English at the time, and my elder brother did not speak English. So we were all really, our job as children were to really focus in the school. And my mother took care of the house and the family. So for myself and my siblings, we had to focus mainly on education. This was the first time for us to actually enter American school without speaking a word of English, and that we faced our own challenge at school, in addition to a challenge that we faced as a family.
So what
Uh,
language were you speaking since you could
well,
not
when we
Mhm. English?
yeah when we mainly spoke Dinka in our family, and we spoke Lua and some Arabic. So my brother, like I said, didn't speak English. My older brother didn't speak English. Neither did my parents.
Mhm, mhm. Wow. So when your stepfather fell gravely ill,
Mhm.
you had to go ahead and be with him in the hospital. That must have been difficult for you, just being such a young child yourself.
Yes, this is a lot similar to what happened while we were in Egypt. When we were in the church compound, my stepfather was hospitalized in Munufia teaching hospital, and I stayed with him. And when we arrived to U.S., my siblings and I had to take turns staying in the hospital with my stepfather, and that's what really this it kind of affected us psychologically
Mhm,
uh, for a while. But when he came home, we were relieved a little bit because we could see him improving, but the challenges remained.
mhm. Yes, indeed. You know, one thing within our South Sudanese culture is that you never talk about issues within a family, even if you have like a tumultuous relationship with your parents. Um, why was it important for you to really discuss that, to reveal that?
Well, this is a challenge. It wasn't just us. Even when I worked at the refugee office before I joined the army, I witnessed similar situations that other people were going through, like for Congolese families. Because you're coming from a part of the world where healthcare is not there, is not existent.
Mhm,
And when people come to U.S., the system is there. There's hospitals you can go for checkup. So when refugees come to a new country, they have illnesses that they do not know, they were not aware of.
mhm,
In my stepfather's case, we knew that he was ill from Egypt because he stayed in the hospital the entire time we were in Egypt.
mhm,
So those are things that I think needs to be talked about. Life is full of challenges, and I talk about them because I want to give people context that just because you come to America, that doesn't mean you're going to be free from problems. The problems will still be there, you see, and you have to do you have to do your level best to be to meet those challenges,
mhm,
with determinations and serious focus.
mhm,
And that's what my mom did, and she was the breadwinner. She in my family, she was the backbone of my family.
mhm,
She was everything,
mhm,
and that kind of shows it gives. I'm trying to demonstrate what a woman can do in the household, because in South Sudanese culture we think everything has to be man, man, man. But in my family, my mom was playing two roles, and she did those successfully.
mhm, mhm. When you were in high school, you decided to join the military. Um, you don't see a lot of South Sudanese men or women joining the military. Why was it important? And especially in the context of you being a South Sudanese, you came from a war zone, and now
Right.
joining the military, that's like, any parent would tell you no, because they have such a negative view of men in uniform.
Well, that is true. My mother was shocked,
Mm.
and she almost had a heart attack when she saw me with the military with the military gears in my hand. I joined JRTC in high school because I always wanted to be a soldier. I'm someone who was inspired by the stories my uncle, stories that I heard in refugee camp about my uncles and those who were fighting the liberation struggle. So when I was in refugee camp, I always told my mom that I would be a soldier, I would be a leader, and she would just ignore me. So when I got to that age, around 16, I, uh, I saw that there was a program that educate young people about how to be a better citizen, and I wanted to be a part of that organization. So I joined with the mindset that there was something that would benefit me there because it taught discipline, it taught um, a lot of things that were good, that can put you on the right path of leadership, and that's why I did it. And I also understand why my mom would be shocked. Her reaction and her words were understandable. As you mentioned, the family fled Sudan uh, due to civil war to seek safety in the United States. And shortly after we arrived to U.S., America was attacked by radical Islamists in September 11th. This happened 6 months after we arrived. At the time, I joined when I joined the JRTC in high school, the American troops were in Afghanistan and Iraq. Uh, this fact can worry any mother who survived a civil war and then seen her son at such a young age joining wearing a uniform. It was something that is understandable. Her worries were understandable, but I had the opportunity to educate my mom about the JRTC and what it does, what the mission,
Mhm.
and she was able to calm down and told me that, look, you're young, you can't join the military right now. So I told her that there was no military obligation on my end. It's just something that I wanted to do for educational purpose.
Mhm. And that educational purposes ended up propelling you to the point whereby you're able to go into the into college on a full ride scholarship.
That's correct.
Mhm.
And because as a child, one of the things that I'm gifted was this vision. I was able to see the situation that I was in because when I completed high school in 2008, my brother and I, who completed high school at the same time, we knew the next step was going to be college. And my mom working long hours and making less pay. What is this, like 750 an hour? That was not going to put us in college.
Mhm.
So I was aware at a very early age that I needed to do something on my own to be able to put myself in a position where I can get a higher education. And I found ROTC as a way. And the way I saw it is that this is actually is something where I can get my education and also be on a track to get commissioned and become an officer. So I ended up getting an Army scholarship. It's a very competitive scholarship because you're competing with other cadets in the nation. So I had a good GPA from high school. I work hard. I stayed focused, and I was able to get the scholarship, which paid for my undergrad studies at
Mhm.
Belmont Abbey College.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
then you even went further apart from getting your undergrad, which is so amazing.
Yes, the fourth scholarship that I won was in 2019, and that scholarship took me to UK, where I studied for my master's in peace, conflict, and development. So again, I am someone who was inspired by the fact that we come from a place where opportunity was less. I was someone who was really serious about my education because of my mother. When she was young, she didn't get education as a young woman because she was forced to marry my father, and later the only thing she had to do was take care of the children until the Civil War started. So my mother served as a source of motivation for me to be able to win all these scholarships that I did, and I won a total of 4 scholarships. I'm not trying to brag, but I'm just saying this is how
No, that's a
how hard I
wonderful
work. And
accomplishment.
yeah, so that scholarship that I won, the fourth one, was had nothing to do with the military. It was an international scholarship through Rotary, and I didn't even know I was going to win it, but I tried. I had a GPA to be able to be qualified. I tried and I got it, and I went to UK in 2017, towards the end of 2017, and I started my studies there.
Mm-hmm. So you not only got your, you were born in a refugee camp, you came to America not knowing English at all. You learned English, you excelled academically, you got a full ride scholarship for your undergrad, and then you got your master's. I mean, what is up next for Mr. Bol Maywal?
Well, the thing is this, like I said, I am really blessed. My mother told me a long time ago that whatever you want, son, you will get. You see, so I feel like my mother has blessed me already. I am the first person in my family to have a college education, and I'm the first person to be an officer. I'm the first person to complete a master's. I even thought about doing a PhD, and the president of my college actually recommended that I should go ahead, and they would support me to complete my PhD, but I refused. I don't think I want to go that route. I'd rather have those 4 years do something some other things. I believe I have enough experience to accomplish my bigger dream, which is to one day serve our people.
Mm-hmm. And that's very important. So you have not forgotten where you came from after being here for so many years.
Well, I was raised here in the U.S. I've been here for 20 years. I live in other countries. I live in the UK. I've been to Belgium. I've been to France. I've been to Germany. And I always look around and I ask myself, how did these people build their countries to be so beautiful like this? And one of the questions that I often ask myself when I travel to these countries that are developed, and I found out that these people that built their countries are no smarter than us. And I think that we can build our country like that as well in the future. Once we have the right people in the right places, it's possible. So Dr. John Garang said something that was really important. He said that if you have education, then you should help our people, because it would be pointless to have all this education and not be able to do something about it. Something that can be positively impact the next generation. So I will use my education in a positive way, and I want people to benefit from it, and that's something that I think will have a greater impact in the future generation.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, that's a very good point. Now, as we conclude this interview, what do you hope readers will take away from reading your book here, A Mother's Promise? Also, where can our viewers be able to obtain your book?
Well, to my fellow Americans, I would like to see more people being welcoming toward refugees. So I said, let's continue to warmly welcome refugees and provide home to those who seek peace and security, and hope to all the girls and women, I am on your team, not just for now, but all the way. Let's empower men to join the fight, to fight against discriminations against girls, domestically and internationally. Let's wage this war to end child marriages and all sort of violence against women. All the students and educators, I want you to know that it was a woman who was deprived of her education who served as a sort of motivation for me to win scholarships to achieve my studies. Let's support women and girls' education and leave nobody behind. When a woman is educated, she can extend her influence beyond her family, community, and country. So it's a good thing to have a woman that's educated in our society. Let's not shy away from that. All the peacemakers. As someone who was born in the middle of civil war, I value peace because of my mother's first-hand experience with civil war in Sudan. To seek peace, we ought to continuously plant seed of peace in our families, communities, and nation. People have suffered for a long time, and I believe that peace is sustainable where we come from. I think South Sudan will one day be stable, and the future for South Sudan is bright. We just have to look after one another and know that when the country is peaceful, everybody wins. You can find my books on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and other bookstores where they sell books. Also, you can find my book. You can find my book in my website at www.bolmaywal.com. And if you purchase my book from my website, it comes with an autograph for myself and my mother. So I encourage you to get it from my website, because I will personalize the note for you, and it will be a good way to remember me and to remember what the book is about.
Mm-hmm. And I can attest to that because I have my own signed autograph copy here. I do. So
That's
what
right.
he says, he does, Yes. So
Right.
Thank you so much, Bol. Thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines and for sitting down for this interview. And this is just a remarkable book. I would definitely encourage our viewers to go ahead and get a copy and read this remarkable story of a mother's love for her children, for her son. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's great to see you again. You take care of yourself.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right.